morning and welcome to Church 180. We are glad to have you with us. We're excited about what God is doing in the lives of His people. There's a lot to be concerned about these days. There's a lot in the world that causes us great consternation, anxiety, some fear even. But we are reminded. We're reminded by the Word. We're reminded by the activity of God's Spirit. We're reminded by the response of His people in various places in the world that He is alive, that He is active, that He has not forgotten us, that He's not unaware of what's going on. And while most of us wish that everything was made right all of a sudden, if we are realistic, if we are willing to pay attention to our deep need and our very invested part of the problem, largely, and the problems that continue in our world, well, I think we'd be grateful for His grace and His patience and His continued relationship with us in spite of so much of what we continue to do and continue to be. So we celebrate Him today and we thank Him. And so I want to talk a little bit about some of what He has done in a way that struck me as just a new thought, kind of a new take on an old story. I think you remember, most of you remember, maybe all of you remember the story we talked about not too long ago, and that is the woman at the well, the Samaritan woman she is sometimes referred to. I want to talk about that a little bit today, but not so much about her as about a part of the interchange, a part of what took place after Jesus' initial interaction with her. This is found in the Gospel of John in chapter 4, if you want to turn there. And as you're turning, I'll just ask you to think outside of Scripture for a moment. Think about in your comings and goings in life recently or some time ago. Do you remember an experience where you were introduced to a new food that you were surprisingly or pleasantly surprised? You really enjoyed it. Maybe you didn't think you were going to enjoy it, but you did. And it became a desirable part of your ongoing, boy, I'm getting some nodding the head already, so I'm just going to stop talking a minute and say, tell me about it. Tell me about that experience.
Really, I don't like fish.
Okay.
I've never liked fish.
Okay.
However, we were at, what was the name of the little restaurant on the Mississippi River in Natchez? What was the name of it? Cock of the Walk. After an old riverboat.
Okay.
Okay, and they had locally caught catfish.
Ah.
And I thought, I tried it.
Did you really?
And that was one of those.
I can't believe I love it.
That and salmon are the only fish I'll eat. Fish.
Interesting.
Forget the tilapias and all those. I just.
And they're on opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
One very mild, one very fishy. Yeah.
Well, the catfish has to be fried.
Yeah.
And I like it best in cornmeal. That's
Oh, yeah.
The
Good
salmon
stuff.
has to be, can be grilled or whatever, but it's got to have a glaze of some kind. I'm picky, but I do.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned fish. I know when Ann and I got married, each of us had a type of food, if I can call it that we just did not like. And fish was the one she didn't like. She did not like fish, informed me right up front, which was heartbreaking to me because my family ate, well, my dad anyway, and later on my little sister, we loved fish, and it was a big part of us. And I thought, oh no, Ann's not gonna, how's this gonna work out? At the same time, heartbreaking to her and her family, I did not like Chinese food. I mean, I was not into Chinese at all. And
you married him anyway?
It was a huge part of not only her life, but her family's life. having been missionaries over in Asia. Well, the short of the story, come to find out, we shared something in common in our dislikes. Neither of us had ever had what we didn't like.
There you go.
Ann's experience with fish was fish sticks, you know?
No.
And so, yeah, a lot of us who really like fish say, well, okay, that doesn't count. And I'd never had Chinese food. I just assumed I didn't like it. We didn't eat it in my family, and, you know, one of those things you look back and think, wow, what was I thinking? Because we both love these now. And they didn't take working into. We just had to begin to try them and be willing to allow ourselves to enjoy something we didn't think we would enjoy. That really gets at what my eyes were open to in revisiting the story we're going to look at this morning. Now, you may remember the essence of the story and the part that's often brought out, and that is that Jesus and his disciples were traveling from one place to another, and on the way, they stopped in an area that was known as Samaria. And this would have been a place that the Jews didn't care for at all. There was a lot of dissension, disagreement, more than that perhaps. Anyway, the short of it is they were tired and they stopped at a well. And in chapter 4, it talks about Jesus encountering this woman at the well. And the fact that he would have encountered her, you remember this, the fact that he would have encountered her at all, that he would have had any conversation with a Samaritan would have been big enough. But a Samaritan woman was unthinkable on all counts. It just would not have happened. And she reacted that way when he began to talk with her. And so you have the dialogue and the exchange. The part that kind of caught me this time as I was revisiting it was as Jesus begins, or as he settles in, so to speak, at the well, it talks about the disciples who in many senses don't get a lot of attention in this because they're absent in the whole conversation. And it says in verse 8, chapter 4, verse 8, in parentheses, his disciples had gone into town to buy food. Now, the original writers of John's Gospel and the early scribes, there was no punctuation, so there certainly were not any parentheses. But it's given in ours, it's put in ours to give us the idea that this is just kind of a side note. The primary emphasis is what's taking place between Jesus and this woman. And they go on to have this conversation about where he asks, will you give me a drink of water? And they begin to discuss what he's really getting at. And how if she would ask him, he could give her living water. Well, while the disciples were away, this whole conversation's occurring. And that's typically what we focus on. But as I was reading it, I just caught again this idea that they had gone to buy food. And frankly, as I was reading a commentator, my eyes were really opened. The suggestion was made that they didn't just go to get food recognizing the need. He probably sent them to get food.
He did, according to the chosen.
Well, which is a given, right?
That's,
I know, yeah.
It's added to. However, we joke about that. I thought, gosh, that's never occurred to me. I don't know why. I just assumed they had gone off to get it. And so I thought, I wonder if that's just this guy's opinion. This writer was a male. I wonder if it's just his opinion. So I pulled out another commentary. That one also had it in there. And it made me start thinking, I don't know for certain. The text doesn't tell us for certain. But if we follow the cultural norms, if he was the leader and they were his followers, if he was the teacher or the rabbi and they were his students, it's very likely he was calling the shots. And if they were going to remain his followers or his disciples, they would have done what he said. So he likely did send them. Yeah, you got a thought on that?
all of them.
All of them.
Not just a couple.
The whole group went. Yeah. An interesting thing to ponder and consider. It makes me wonder, perhaps you do too, maybe that's what's behind your statement. Did it take all of them to go get food?
Yeah.
It's as though Jesus had something in mind. No offense, fellas, I got to get you out of here so that we can have this conversation without you. Interestingly enough, their response, their reaction when they come back and they find him talking to a Samaritan woman on top of that is shock. They don't directly counter him in spite of their shock. But what the Bible tells us that they do say is they ask him questions. They wonder, actually, they don't ask him the questions, but they wonder, what in the world is he talking to her? What does he want? Why would he be engaging with her and risking the damage to his reputation if somebody knew about this? Well, they come back with the food and they encourage him. Rabbi, eat something. In verse 31. And then this, he says to them, I have food to eat that you know nothing about. Now that's not new news to me. It's probably not new news to you. If you have heard messages, which I'm sure you have on this passage before, that's a key part of it. Something has taken place right before this suggestion that he eat, this recommendation, this encouragement, and his surprising, shocking, really, response. After the conversation, after her realization of what was taking place truly underneath the surface, after she begins to get the idea, this is not just some teacher. And she runs off to tell all the people in the town where she was from. Then this interchange occurs. And I started wondering, was that just a comment off the cuff? Or was there something deeper to it? Was there something that Jesus meant or was referring to that his disciples maybe picked up on that I would have missed because I'm not in that culture? I've learned a lot over the years, but there's so much I still don't know. So I started searching. Come to find out, it's very possible that Jesus had the words of the prophet Isaiah in mind. If you turn to Isaiah 55, Isaiah makes a comment to the people of God whom he has delivered some very difficult prophecy. But he's encouraging them in the midst of that difficulty to return. There's an invitation given. He speaks on behalf of the Lord. The first two verses in chapter 55 of Isaiah capture it. Come, all you who are thirsty, come to the waters. And you who have no money, come, buy and eat. Come, buy wine and milk without money and without cost. Makes me think of this woman at the well. Makes me wonder what she had available. When I think about what we know of her, when I think about the numerous husbands she'd had, and the reputation she probably had throughout the village, I just wonder what kind of poverty she was living in. Maybe not monetary poverty. I don't know her current situation. But poverty can be more than just about money. And then this, Isaiah says, why spend money on what is not bread, and your labor on what does not satisfy? Listen to me, and eat what is good, and you will delight in the richest of fare. if I go back to this interchange between Jesus and the woman, and I don't focus so much on the woman, but I focus on Jesus, as I think about Jesus and what John has begun to tell us. Well, in fact, the way John opened up his gospel to begin with, and he says about Jesus, he came as the life. And that life was the light to all humanity. And that anyone who would receive Jesus, anyone who would receive his message, could be called the children of God. Jesus had a really powerful message to deliver. And when I don't think about the divine Jesus, as much as I think about the human Jesus, and this relationship he had with his Father, our Father, and all the conversation that must have taken place all throughout his life up to this point, knowing a message of incredible grace, of incredible hope, of an incredibly life-giving message, I can't help but think that at times, at least, he had to have been really excited about getting that message out. He had to have thought at least sometime, oh, wait till I tell them. Because these are my buddies. These are my friends. This is my family. These are people that I have grown up with. I've got good news. And lo and behold, who does he tell? A woman. Didn't count in those days. And a woman from a land who was definitely on the opposite side. And she responds. And she doesn't just respond. You remember the story. She runs back. She didn't even take her jar. She came for water and she leaves her jar. She's so excited about the message that she has. She's so excited about the realization that's dawned on her. She's so excited about the hope and possibilities that she doesn't even seem to be focusing on all the reason to be embarrassed that she had. She doesn't even seem to be focused and hung up on the regret or the remorse or the, I can't believe we're having that. It's good news, and it's totally changed her, and she's run back to tell everybody in the village. And the disciples come back with food, encouraged that they'd found food somewhere, bought it, brought it to their teacher, their rabbi, and said, hey, eat some of this. Man, you got to be tired. It's hot out here. We've been traveling. And he says, I have food to eat that you know nothing about. Somebody come while we weren't here? What's he talking about? And then in verse 34, he says, my food is to do the will of him who sent me. My food is to do the will of him who sent me. Well, the fact that he was sent, he wasn't sent into a vacuum. He wasn't sent into an empty place. He wasn't sent just to be by himself. He was sent to a people. The very same people of the people group, I should say, that descended from those that the prophet Isaiah was speaking to. Come, those of you who are thirsty, and delight in the richest of fare, the richest food available. This is really yummy stuff. Get it. I can think back in some off-color language that my buddies know, you get a load of this, would you? You know? You want this. I've got good food for you. As I'm sure he was knowing and imagining as she's run off to tell. I'm sure he already had a sense of what was going on. And as he's trying to explain to his dearly loved but kind of missing the boat disciples, a whole new group of disciples, the message is dawning on them. They're getting it. They're not the chosen people. They're not the in crowd. They're not the select group. And yet as soon as they hear it, they want to check it out. There's something in her witness, testimony, that is so contagious, so infectious, that they need to go check it out. And they do so. Now, when I think about them, and I think about this response, and I think about the woman and her excitement, I don't know how Jesus couldn't have been excited. I mean, I'm sure he's disappointed that his friends, his disciples, these closest to him, they weren't getting it so far. But he had to have just been bubbling over inside, because it wasn't just his idea. You remember, he was sent. I did a little homework on this idea of him being sent. And, you know, John writes in his gospel, the one who sent me, 18 times. That must have been an all-the-time thought in Jesus' mind. I'm not here by accident. I'm not here to do whatever. I'm here to do the will of the one who sent me. He mentions another 8 times the Father who sent me. I mean, this is a big deal in Jesus' mind. He was sent with a specific purpose and a specific message. And that message has just been received by the most unexpected person. And she's off telling other people, and they're getting excited about it, and it's working. And he had to be thinking, Father, check it out. It's happening. They're coming to recognize me as being sent by you. It says that. They say, in verse 42, they said to the woman, we no longer believe just because of what you said. Now we've heard it for ourselves. And we know this man really is the Savior of the world. How did they get there? Jesus talks over and over and over throughout John's gospel about this mission he was sent on, this message that he was given. And he's telling anybody who will listen, in every way he knows how, someone sent me. The one that you and your ancestors have worshipped for hundreds of years sent me to give you a message because you've missed it. And I want you to get it because it's good and it's life-giving. As a matter of fact, if you jump over to chapter 6 and that passage where Jesus talks about him being the bread of life, which is such a difficult passage for them to get and for many of us to swallow, if you will, pun intended. What does it mean to eat his bread and drink his blood? But he says this in chapter 6, verse 38 and 39 and 40, for I have come down from heaven not to do my will, but to do the will of him who sent me. And this is the will of him who sent me, that I shall lose none of all those he has given me, but raise them up at the last day. This is the work God had given him. This is the mission and the message. The mission Jesus was sent with and the message he brought to deliver. And that message would give life forever to all those who would believe it. If you jump over to chapter 9, when he's confronted with this man who's blind and the disciples question him, who sinned? Do you remember that passage? Who sinned? Somebody had to have sinned. This man's been born from blind. Their whole focus is on the sin, the blame, oh, well, that's why this happened. And obviously Jesus, if you know the story, says, no, you're off. It's neither him nor his parents that sinned. That's not what this is about. This is about so that the works of God, chapter 9, verse 3, the works of God might be displayed in him. And then hear this, chapter 9, verse 4. As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. Captures some of these things John's already told us. But the part I want you to hear in verse 4, the beginning of it, as long as it is day, the Bible doesn't say, and I must do, which we expect to hear. It says, we must do the works of him who sent me. So these same commentators I was reading say, I checked it out because I wanted to make sure that wasn't just some glitch in the system here of translation. And they agree, it is we. Almost all the English translations have it as we. And they say the we is probably not we everybody, although that would become the end game of Jesus' mission that he sends us on. It was probably we, the blind man who had been given sight. I've delivered a message to you. It is a great message. It's a message of hope. It's just changed your whole life. Come on. We have got a lot of work to do. We got to get this message out to other people. I have often focused on the sacrifice, and rightly so. I have often focused on the dread in the garden. I've often focused on the pain that he went through, the agony. I've often focused on the isolation and all the other things that rightly make me look introspectively at my part of the problem. But I haven't always focused on how the good news of the message that God gave, the Father gave Jesus to bring to us, had to have compelled him. I can't wait to tell people, you need to hear this. I want you to hear this. Just last week we talked about it in the prayer that Jesus was praying, the priestly prayer or the pastoral prayer, and he's saying, hey, this is eternal life, that they know you and they know me. But then in 17:4, Jesus says to God the Father, I have brought you glory on earth by finishing the work you gave me to do. Well, finishing the work, yes, that's probably talking about the sacrifice. That's probably talking about the price he paid, and that price would be enough to free all of us at any time ever in the history of humanity that would believe in him. But it also had to do with he finished the work of giving the message, of getting out the good news. I've got food, and you want this big time. This will be the richest affair of the richest food. A gourmet dinner. You're going to love this. It gives me, it challenges me to think. Also in John's Gospel, in chapter 19, at the end of such immeasurable agony, when he says, it is finished. Because earlier he said he's come to do and to finish the work God had given him to do. And when I think about those people, those very few, or maybe more that the writers just didn't capture, like all those in the village who weren't the in crowd, the seed was planted. As he talks about back in chapter 4 when he's trying to get his disciples to understand, you plant seed and you wait the length of time before the harvest. I'm telling you, the harvest is ready now. In other words, do you know what just happened here? They're hungry. Well, hopefully you've been able to tell from my excitement that this just lit me up all over again. And it made me think of those who are hungry, those who are struggling, those who need to hear. I often focus on the argument that I expect to have. I probably don't, and maybe you don't, think nearly enough about the work that God has already been doing. The work that God had been doing in those on the outside, the unacceptable Samaritans. They were ready. They were hungry. They just needed to hear the word. How many do we know? How many do we encounter? And I guess that's the bottom line of this message that I couldn't wait to come share with you today. And that is, if we focused a lot less on the argument we may get, or the rejection we may experience, the opposition that may come, and focus a lot more on those who are really hungry, and this would be excellent news. Thank you, Lord. Thank you for being faithful.
I have a question. The Samaritans were kind of on the outside from the traditional Jewish world. They couldn't go to temple, they couldn't do any of that kind of stuff. Could that
Right.
be playing into their acceptance and their readiness, their hunger for hearing what they heard and saw what they saw? They were ready. They didn't get confused with all the
Other
happenings.
stuff could well be. Could
Maybe
well
that's the way
be.
God was working for them.
Could well be.
Yeah.
Good thought. I just think about how much God the Father loves us and how he sent his Son to deliver this message, and how life-changing, long-term the results can be. So, Lord, may we honor you. May we honor you with maybe new understanding. May we honor you with maybe renewed conviction. May we honor you, Lord, with maybe a contagious message that we can't wait to share. And may your people who are hungry, may they hear it and receive it. May they hear you and receive you and gain what is incomparable, a gift forever.